Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast today. We have a fantastic conversation with a very interesting guy. Justin Adams is the trainer, or as he puts it, positivity mindset coach for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland recently fought in the UFC against Michael Chiesa, and it was a fantastic fight. He took care of business, and I want to know how what Justin helps Kevin with could help the rest of us, whether that is a fishing tournament that you want to get into, a business meeting that you need to be prepared for, or you want to have a very important conversation with your wife. Whatever it may be, are there things that we can learn from elite performers and trainers that we can transfer into our lives to make us all better? That's what we're going to talk about today, but we're going to go through a lot of MMA stories, bull riding stories, and other stories to get there. So here we go with Justin Adams.
Hey guys, I'm Justin Adams. I'm with the Rowland podcast today.
So Justin Adams, nice to have you on the podcast. How are you, man?
Thanks, buddy. I'm excited. I'm doing well. Feel like I'm never slowing down anymore. Constantly picking up speed.
Well, you had a very exciting weekend recently. I watched Kevin's fight. He looked crisp and clean and professional and just took care of business on a very tough fighter. Michael Chiesa, that guy he's tough. I've always thought of him as a tough fighter, but Kevin handled business like no problem.
You know, the thing with Kev is he's finally maturing to a point that he is taking this serious and he's actually progressing every single fight. What I love is you never have the same thing to worry about. What he was good at this fight is going to be added to the bag, and something new is going to come along for the next one. That it's hard to prepare to fight Kev. I've been trying to fight him for years. It's just hard to do.
Well, so for the audience, you are part of Kevin Holland's training team, his trainer. What's your position there? What would you call your position? His trainer?
I guess I'm the jiu-jitsu coach, but Kevin knows so much jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, kickboxing that typically I'm more of just a kind of positive vibes coach, right? I keep Kev reminded that he's the baddest cat on two legs. So it makes we kind of have this relationship since he was, I think, 17, where we know how to get him in that peak performance mode.
All right. I love it. You're going to teach us how to get into the peak performance mode, and we're going to bridge. That's what we're doing here. We're going to bridge the MMA bull riding world into how we can all take a little piece of that and apply it to our lives and be better.
That's
and a big portion of this audience is fishermen, and it can be very competitive and very physical and very tough in the different types of fishing that we do. But in order to get to know you a little bit better, we're going to do the 1-minute hot seat questions.
Oh.
And this is sometimes one of my favorite parts of the show, and a lot of people's favorite parts of the show. I promise you you won't get in trouble with these questions. They're very simple. Okay, so are you ready to go for a minute? It's just the first thing that comes to your mind. Good to go?
Let's go.
All right. Rock, country, or other?
Rock.
Mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Energy drinks.
Name a movie that always makes you laugh.
Grumpy Old Men.
Sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, sunset.
Text or calls?
Text.
This will be a good one for you. One thing you're afraid of?
Ooh, mice.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Winter. I'm from a ski resort.
There you go. Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction is nonfiction these days, so I'm going to go with fiction.
There you go. The Office, Friends, or Parks and Rec?
Ooh, The Office.
Nice. Technical gadget you rely on the most in your life?
My phone.
If you could have any superpower permanently, what would it be?
I would have to go with the ability to read minds.
Ooh. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay.
Cats are assholes.
All right. You made it pretty far in there. Some interesting answers in there. You from a ski resort? What ski resort?
My family owns Ski Cloudcroft in southern New Mexico. I think we're the southernmost ski area in the country. Um,
Wow. Do you have
800
incredible elk hunting around you right there
man.
in
So
New
we border
Mexico?
the Mescalero Apache Reservation, and it's nothing for us. Usually good to see on the mountain. You'll see some 330 bulls, 350 bulls. Um, but there's every year there's about a 375 killed somewhere in there.
And did you grow up elk hunting?
Mule deer and elk hunting, yeah.
Right on. Do you still do it?
I do when I get home. My uncle owns a big ranch in Cascade, Montana, and so my last little endeavor up there was I did a mountain lion hunt a couple years ago, and I went
All
during the worst
right.
possible time in the winter where we had that cold stretch, and I don't think it got above -20, and I learned what a human check engine light feels like.
What does that feel like?
I would get out to get the gate, and I was okay, but my body was telling me, "Yeah, you're okay right now, but this is dropping like a lead balloon. Like you're not going to be okay for long out here."
Yeah. 20 below is serious. One time I thought I was going to live in Wyoming, in Jackson, Wyoming.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's where I started my guide career. And I decided I was going to live there for the winter. And I'd only been there every summer. I'd been there for 7 summers, but never in the winter. So I decided I was going to spend the winter there. And that's how I ended up in Key West, Florida
there
for
you
the
go.
rest of my fishing career. I decided that 30 below is a little too cold for me, but I have two boys that live in Bozeman, Montana, so
Yep.
they are weathering it. But honestly, when I call out there and I'm asking them how cold it is, it's usually warmer than I think. So
Bozeman's
they've had it a
actually
little more mild, but this last winter was pretty cold. They had some 30 belows.
my dad was born in Bozeman, so I bet you we have a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of the same. There's not a lot of people in Montana, so I bet we have a lot of the
yeah.
same contacts. My uncle has a big ranch in Cascade, and they do a lot of fly fishing out of there.
Okay, where is Cascade, Montana?
Um, Kind of that Great Falls area.
Okay, Great Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do they? We would go up there and fish between Helena and Great Falls is the Missouri River,
Yep.
and we spent a good bit of time up there, and still go with my boys. They like to go up to the Missouri, but I haven't. I don't think I've ever been in the town or the area of Cascade. That Wolf Creek kind of Helena, Great Falls area, kind of know it, but I'm sure. I guess Cascade's somewhere in between there, or kind of
hmm
closer to Great
It's
Falls.
I believe if I remember correctly, it's just south of Great Falls. I could be wrong though. I'll have to look at a
Yeah,
map.
I bet he's got some great fishing there. Do you like to
It's
do that too?
it's incredible, and in fact, my cousin actually runs the fly fishing service. So I'll make sure and get you his info because I think we're gonna go
Oh
back up.
yeah.
It's probably gonna be next summer. I'll probably go shoot a mountain lion again this year, this winter, and then I'd like to go check out the fly fishing next year. It's kind of
Yeah.
a good team building trip with some of my business buddies and things like that. So
Well, you know what's interesting, and I'm not so sure. I would imagine it's this way in jiu-jitsu, but I know it's this way in wrestling. Wrestling was my primary sport growing up,
yeah,
and there is a real connection between wrestlers and fly fishermen. I don't know why, but wrestlers seem to take to it. And there's like wrestling, jiu-jitsu is kind of like physical chess. And then you have fly fishing, which is a lot like chess with wild creatures. Like you have to choose these different flies. If you throw one in there, you might spook them. So you got to try these different approaches to it. And I don't know why, but I think it's the similarities between the two sports that it's kind of they're both kind of thinking man's games. So a lot of people don't realize that about wrestling and jiu-jitsu, but and boxing as well. I mean, it seems like a brutal sport, but it's really a thinking man's game at a high level. And I think fly fishing is very similar, especially freshwater fly fishing. But
I couldn't
yeah,
agree more.
I bet a lot of your fighters would get into it.
I couldn't agree more, and it is a cerebral kind of sport. Both of them for different reasons, but a lot more so than people give either one credit for.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it just seems very brutal and like two brutes in there doing it. But most of the people that I know that take it to a high level, like wrestling in college or further, um, and a lot of jujitsu black belts and people that I know are very smart people, extremely smart people.
It's
To
baffling.
the level of like a Lex Friedman or somebody.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially to kind of my coach Travis Luter, he fought for a UFC world title, and he's one of my closest friends, and with the German mindset and the analytical kind of engineering approach, very no nonsense. And, this works because of this, and you can apply it because of these reasons. His jujitsu's world class because of that, and then um, it is a very cerebral game, and people don't realize, I think, how much under pressure thinking you have during a high anxiety or a high adrenaline event, and the ability to maintain composure and stay calm, whether we're grappling, wrestling, fighting, whatever the case may be. It's like it's not given credit as much to the cerebral and thinking aspect as people should give it.
Well, one of the things that happens as you have taken wrestling or jiu-jitsu to any sort of a high level, whether even if it's just high school wrestling, is that it has tremendous crossover into your regular life, whether that's personal life, business, whatever. What are the things that you think that might have the biggest crossover that you've seen in your fighters or people that you've trained or people, just casual jujitsu people that they learn lessons that they learn on the mat that they take into their normal life?
Oh man, the ability to stay calm under pressure seems to be the key one. When you've got a 250-pound man smashing the fire out of you or trying to choke you, and you have to think about what you're doing to get out, you learn to be a little more comfortable in uncomfortable positions. Um, I think that it's something. I've been in. I'm going to admit it. I've been in fights with people that don't train, and it's crazy how quick they redline and want to give up. They'll think a choke's in when a choke's not in. Makes it easy for a guy that knows how to fight. We don't argue those times, but I think that the composure factor is something that's really key.
What about your own story? How did you get started in? I mean, you've got like going through your Instagram and just we got introduced by Coach HP there, and
Yeah.
he told me about you, and you've got really a really crazy resume of bull riding, making it as a MMA fighter, MMA trainer, jiu-jitsu guy. I mean, pretty wild things. Like, how does someone? Is it just incremental? You just try one thing and then it leads to another, or how do you develop that resume? How old are you now?
I'm 42, so I got some age behind
Okay,
me. Um,
yeah. Well, 42 is good age. I'm 55. I'll be 55 in August.
there we go.
So
You're holding it together a lot better than I am. Um,
that's the way it looks from across the internet.
hey, we'll take it. For me, I guess it all stemmed from having older brothers, and so they taught me early on that I was you know, the test dummy for all the dumb things that we did. Um, and I've been run over by more three-wheelers, four-wheelers, animals than I care to admit. I started riding, steers and calves when I was young. I got on my first actual full-grown bull at 12 years old, I think. Um,
Wow.
Tons of injuries riding bulls. Like I did a comparative one day on my Facebook of my injuries sustained rodeoing versus fighting. It's not even in the same ballpark. Um,
Wow.
but that's what kind of brought me from, I'm from a little mountain town in New Mexico called Cloudcroft. It's 100 miles north of El Paso, Texas, 10,000-foot elevation. So I was working on the ski resort there and going to school and just, rodeoing when I could around there. I got of legal age, and I decided to dip out of New Mexico and move to Texas to go to some more rodeos and ride bulls professionally. Um, got to Texas and started to realize how many Brazilians were beating us in the rodeo circuit. So I started to do a little case study, and there was a lot of them with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. So I researched Travis Luter. I also may have definitely gotten into a few fights over here in Texas and decided I needed to learn how to fight. And so went hand in hand. I got tied in with Travis Luter, and it is definitely vastly improved my rodeo career and my ability to ride bulls, but it also opened some doors where I realized, you know what, fighting guys that were 150 pounds is a lot less stressful than riding bulls that are 2,000 pounds, and it doesn't hurt as bad. So there was, I was training a lot, and this tall, skinny black kid from California moved into town, and he was hard to beat up, but he was super charismatic and likable. Well, that turned out to be 17-year-old Kevin Holland, and he and I palled up immediately. Um, I used to hire him to give me striking lessons and to help me with, side work, and I'd sponsor him $100 a fight or whatever. And then he in turn would beat the stuffing out of me, and then he just signed me up for my first fight one day. And
Hmm.
so we ran the circles together, helping each other there. I've put him on a couple bucking bulls, which I'll dig the videos up and send them to you. That's not his sport. Um, and then as it panned out, I detached my retina in a fight, so I went blind in my left eye, which didn't need that left eye anyway. And so no more. Travis said no more fighting. I got into this coaching gig, and with Kevin, it's just kind of we've been running circles, and we have a great friendship to where I know his mental state. I can get him in the right, peak performance mode, flip the switch to where he goes into killer mode, and it's not always fun. Sometimes I get thrown all over the place like a rag doll, but we get him there, and it's obviously working. We've branched out. I'm getting to work with Terrence McKinney now. I've worked with Randa Marcos. Did some stuff with Derek Lewis this last weekend, and it looks like we'll be helping Big Derek moving forward. So it's working. There must be some translation from the rodeo bludgeonings to these, understanding fighters, and I'm digging it.
Wow. Yeah, well, understanding fighters is going to be a topic here in a second, and if you're going to start working with Derek, I'm sure that your life is going to become funnier, if anything. That guy is hilarious. He is really, really a funny guy,
I've
and
got to take
and
him a piglet on Sunday. So I have these pigs, right? That
yeah.
my wife, okay, I started out with one tiny pig that was supposed to be a micro pig, and this thing's 200 pounds now. This was not a micro pig. And then my wife thought he needed a friend, so she got two more. And I got to get rid of one. I can't have three pigs running around the house. So Derek said he needs a pig. And the last thing he told me before I left the other day, he grabbed me. And that man, when he grabs you, you pay attention. And he said, "Where my damn pig at?" I said, "I will bring it this week. Just settle down." So I'll probably shoot some video of it and send it of Derek getting his pig.
That's going to be awesome. I wonder why he needs a pig. Because he needs another pet or a friend, or maybe he's hungry.
I was thinking about that. Like
Could be.
this piglet's the size of a cat. Could you imagine being dropped off at Derek Lewis's house when you're a mouthful at best anyway?
Well, that's going to be pretty funny. Well, that's quite a group of people that you've had to work with or been able to work with, and so you're kind of considering yourself. I think it's interesting that you called yourself kind of a positive vibes coach, and I think that it would be super awesome if everybody had a positive vibes coach. If somebody had a positive vibes coach that they could go to before a business meeting, before a fishing tournament, before something that they needed to operate at a better performance, not even peak performance, but just better. What kind of things would you do if you were a positive vibes coach for just a regular person, not a fighter?
I think a lot of it goes into our ability to recognize when we're in our optimal performance mode, right? So you think back, you probably have maybe 5 or 6 times, you got a handful of times that you felt unstoppable, and you just
Mm-hmm.
knew that where you were casting, you were going to hit, and you knew that you were going to be your best version of whatever you were doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to try to identify those times, and I'm constantly watching for little trigger reminders with Kev where it's like, hey, it might be subtle sometimes. I'll be like, hey, you remember this song? This was on that day you beat up Tim Means, and we finished with this. And it reminds him, oh, yeah, that's right. And kind of hits that little, the little light flips on. And so I try to just find some things that identify with these guys. And, you know, the Ponzinibbio fight just before this one, Kev's hand, he had just broken his hand in the Wonder Boy fight, and he came back a little too quick, couldn't throw the right hand. And that's one of my best friends and I see him in the back, and he's never upset, and I see him worried about being able to punch with his right hand. And so um, I started to just remind him that he could beat the guy one-handed, and I started giving him instances of things I remembered of when he was the scariest human with one hand. And next thing we walk out, and he starts to it all registers, and he goes on and he beats the stuffing out of that guy with one hand. And it all comes back to just finding those little, confirmation points more than anything, reminders, because we've all had times where we feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
Being able to shuffle through your mental Rolodex and access those is key for anything.
Yeah. When you're talking to the fighters, or anyone that wants to achieve a high level, you have some people that that really want to beat someone. You have someone that wants to like dominate the fight, or wants to beat everyone else. And then you have other people that want to perform to their best, or they want to win, or they want more of a positive outcome, where the other could be considered a negative outcome. Like, I want to dominate everybody. I want to beat the crap out of this person. I want to. Which of those do you think is more productive?
Um, when we go into that mindset of I just want to beat the stuffing out of this guy, it's great. Aggression's great, but it's not our optimal version of ourselves. And so what you got to do is find the way to really play to your strengths and bring out the best in your guy. If you can make him the best version of himself, like if we saw it this weekend, we have Kev in a very prime version of himself right now. He's scary, right? Derek too. Derek's scary right now because these guys are realizing the head game, and they're understanding how to flip the switch and get to where they're in their optimal mode. So I think that being the best version of yourself is going to trump just going out there with the goal of beating this guy over the head. Because what happens if that guy's focusing on being his best version of himself? He's going to nullify a lot of what you have going on and probably excel in areas that you're skipping past because all you're seeing is red.
That's important. Like, and that's where staying calm, like what we started talking about in the beginning, staying calm and is super important.
Absolutely.
But that was something that I learned in my life of the differences between the two, like wanting to beat the stuffing out of somebody, or wanting to win at any cost or whatever, and then the opposite of just trying to do the very best that you can, capitalize on all the practice and all the reps that you've put in, and just do each one of those perfect. And if you do that, you will win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you can take your whole team up with you, and you can perform at your very best. And I guess it really is kind of a personal thing when you get to your level of working with all these different varied personalities and fighters. Is there might be somebody that definitely does perform better, with kind of that more what I would consider a negative mindset. Like, I don't know, that guy said something bad about your wife, or
Right.
like something like that. And so for certain personalities, that may be the more effective one. I don't know. Have you run into that?
We have actually. It's like Randa Marcos, a dear friend of ours, Canadian girl that was in the UFC for a long time. She would tell me in between rounds, don't sugarcoat it. She said, tell me exactly what's going on, whether I'm winning or not. I need to hear it. Likewise, I've had other guys where you have to kind of be a little careful about how you present it. With Kev, where I like to lay the idea out and then let him kind of figure it out from there, because then it resonates with him more. Kev's one of those guys that if you tell him what to do, he's going to prove you wrong by not doing it and being successful. So if we just lay it out there, let him pick it up and let him recognize it for himself, he runs with it. So understanding different guys and different ways to coach them and how they're going to process the information. Like I could tell you the, the all the secrets under the sun, but if I'm not telling you in a language you understand, it doesn't matter. So we've got to figure out how to get our guys to receive the information in the most, the best way possible. And you do run into that.
How far did you take bull riding?
I was going to PBR events. I made it to what I guess it's called. It's the televised. It used to be called the Bud Light Cups or the Built Ford Tough series. I made it as an alternate to one event, which is top 45 in the world at that time. And
Wow.
outside of that, I hung in that top 100 range which works for me. I'm coming from a hometown with no stoplights, so um, I definitely. But one of the things that really struck me hard about riding bulls was when I was younger. Um, I could ride bulls, no issues, no problems, had no stress, no concern, no worry, and I used to get wrecked out. I've had my pancreas ruptured. I've had probably I bet 200 stitches. I've had teeth knocked out, everything. Um, Never was worried. As I got older, I started to recognize how important the head game was to it because that's what tripped me out a lot of the time was I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be on the same level as some of these guys. And the guys that were beating me then are all still really good friends of me now, and proud of what I'm doing and happy to take part in what I'm doing now. So I think my failure to win a gold buckle or to be, the very top tier bull rider made me better for these guys as a coach now in a different sport, but very similar head game.
Isn't that interesting? How long did it take you to be thankful that you didn't win the gold buckle? I have a similar story. Should have won the state championship in wrestling. I got fourth place. And even today, at 55 years old, it hurts me to say that I got fourth place because I consider that a massive, major failure. However, it's been pointed out to me by some people that are close to me is it's like, well, that's why you've been successful in these other things because you didn't prepare adequately for that, and whether you know it or not, you fixed that, and maybe you don't even realize that for 20 years, but it is because you had that failure that you chose this path,
Yeah,
and there have been things that have happened because of
that's
that
a great point.
that have led to success that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And I would just wonder if it has. It seems like it's kind of hard for you to say I didn't win that gold buckle, but at the same time, you're saying it's allowed me to do what I'm doing now, and I really like it, and I'm good at it.
100%. And honestly, how many wrestling tournaments do you go to happily now? You probably don't go to too many.
Well, no, I do because I've been a wrestler, a wrestling parent, and a
Hmm.
wrestling coach all, and
Okay.
so it's very different. Being a wrestler is one thing, being a wrestling coach is another thing, and being a wrestling parent is another thing entirely. And of the three, the most difficult is being the wrestling parent, I think.
I see. I have a hard time. My stepsons, my oldest one fights bulls professionally, and then I have a professional bareback rider and a professional saddle bronc rider, and they've all ridden bulls at different times. I have a hard time going to rodeos because I miss that era of my life, but it's also a reminder that it's like things are different now, and it's a little bittersweet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, that comes into play. I think like my coach Travis Luter has a hard time going to amateur fights and regional pro fights for the same reason. When you've competed at these really high levels, it's hard to go and watch people kind of fumble through something that you
Mm-hmm.
would love to have one more shot at.
Yeah.
Um, I did too. I won second in the state my senior year in high school in the bull riding, and I know that feeling you're talking about. It's like second's great. First was where it was at, and I should have been first.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing haunts you. So for me, I really enjoy the idea of I look at life in chapters instead of I have a lot of buddies that live that Uncle Rico life where they're hung up
Yeah.
on high school glory and chapters. I had a great bull riding chapter. I had a good fighting chapter. I'm into I'm living a great dad chapter and husband chapter, and just because the chapter ends doesn't mean the book's over.
Right. I like that. I look at chapters as well, and one of the things that was interesting when I was doing some research on you was your parenting and how much time you're spending with your daughter. And
Man,
I wonder what kind of lessons that you're learning from bull riding and fighting that you're translating into parenting.
you know, um, one of the cool things I did when my ex-wife, she was my wife at the time, got pregnant, I started an email account for my little girl. So I've been emailing her for, she's 11 now, so 12 years. I've been sending her emails, and I get hit in the head enough, I'll probably forget the good stories and some of the stuff. And so I think that's important for her to see time-stamped situations that I've gone through, good and bad, funny stories, pictures, all that stuff. It's like nothing's that big of a deal that we can't solve it. And I used to hate when my parents would talk down to me. So I've made it a conscious effort. Like if we got something to go over, I get down, squat down on her level, we talk it out. And I try to do it where she understands that we're trying to get to a solution and why we don't need to do that, as opposed to just being told not to or whatever the case may be. Um, Understanding information is just so important rather than just throwing it out there at them. And so I do. The very best thing about me is my munchkin. So the best thing I've ever done has got to be a dad. The cool part is I had mine about, I don't know, a couple months before Kevin had his little boy, and he took the same approach. And he and Cam are thick as thieves, and Cam and my daughter are really good buddies. So he comes out and stays with us a lot. And then what I thought was cool was Kev had a baby while we were out at this fight, and he changed his flight home and everything to get home as soon as he could after the fight to go hang out with his baby. And I think that's cool, man. I mean, these are these are mini versions of us that we're farming out and sending out in the world. So you got to do a good job. You got to be involved.
Yeah, for sure. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
You're I'm sure you're a great dad. We enjoy that part.
Yeah, it's been fantastic being a dad. I love it. I've got 3 children. I have a 25-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 19. They are. That's another chapter for us. Like we're opening another chapter of now we're empty nesters and our kids are gone. So, as far as bull riding and fighting and parenting, are there any other things that you've learned or drawn conclusions or similarities of?
Man, it's crazy. Between all the different things that I've gotten to do, you build close friendships with the most random people, right? It's like, in what world are your two closest friends, Kevin Holland and Travis Luter, which are opposite ends of the spectrum as far as human beings are concerned. My rodeo life, I got to see so much cool stuff, and made great long lasting friendships there that I still call on today. And um, it's like, of all the things, I still stand by it. Being a dad's the coolest for me. Um, I just don't think that there's anything that's matched that from a high standpoint. Um, I can say, as far as other dumb things I've done, let's just shoot from the hip here. I tried to bulldog a mule deer off of a snowmobile one time, and that didn't work.
Wow.
Yeah. I tried to jump on a turkey off a snowmobile one time too, and that was worse than the mule deer. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah. Like I said, growing up with the ski resort and living on a ski resort, we had a lot of time to do really dumb stuff. Um, I've got so many stories that I probably shouldn't put out in the world that are fantastic. So one day we'll have to have a drink and I'll go over some of the finer points. When you grow up in a town with no stoplights and one cop, you can get away with a lot of fun stuff.
I'm sure that fun stuff, but also, when you're not watching TV all the time, you have to create your own entertainment, right? And bulldogging a mule deer off a snowmobile sounds like a hell of an afternoon.
I rode right up next to it, and it was in some deep snow, and I was in some packed snow next to it. And I thought, my brother was following me, and I thought I could dive off and get this guy. And I got right up next to him, and he got up on the packed snow and kicked it back at me, and it splintered the windshield on my snowmobile, and I'm good. I don't need to jump on that animal now. And then the turkey, I got up close to the turkey and went to
They're
dive.
wild animals for a reason.
Man, well, there's actually, and Ty Murray, the all-around PRCA world champion bull rider, bronc rider. I think he was on Dancing with the Stars. He married Jewel.
Yeah.
So if you find it, there's still a picture out there of Ty once back, I believe it was in Wyoming. They were on a snowmobile tour, and they roped a cow elk, and he rode the cow elk, like, because Ty could ride anything. So he jumped up on this cow elk, and they're
Wow.
talking about it. He got in trouble, had to pay a fine. This is back in the 90s, um, which means it had to be pretty legit because in the 90s people didn't care about stuff like they do now. But it was kind of a cool thing that, you know, something different. And if you're left outside too long, you get it. You stay outside too long, you end up trying some dumb stuff.
Oh yeah. Riding a bull elk, I don't know that that's going to be on the list.
It's not for me. I'm good without that one.
Of all the, I mean, the all the horns and the spikes and things that it could be throwing back at you.
Now text it to you because it's out there somewhere. But he just jumped on a cow elk and they roped it, put a rope on it, and he climbed up on board and had the picture. It's amazing the stuff we'll do for pictures.
Yeah, that's where people go crazy with the gram nowadays. Let me ask you a couple other questions about training, and this may go into the mindset. I'm interested in how you see it being different training an up and coming new fighter and then you've got like veterans that you're working with. What are the differences in the mindset and what things that you have to work with on the different ends of the spectrum there?
Um, with the veterans, it's nice because they know what's expected of them, and they know what their strong points are. The downfall sometimes is breaking bad habits and getting them in a different mindset. It's,
Mm,
you got some of these guys that have won before, they get on a losing streak, and now it's harder to dig them out of that losing rut in their mindset than it would be a fresh guy. In the same breath, you got fresh guys that think they know more than they do, that haven't been battle tempered yet, and they need to be reminded that there are levels to the game. So everybody presents their own challenge for sure, and we have to be careful.
yeah.
I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but we have to be careful sometimes to present information without it being overly offensive because these are all people that can beat the stuffing out of me, and I'm tired of getting beat up.
Yeah, I guess that is a pretty fine line to walk. How do you see that the sport's changed in the last 15 or 20 years as far as the new talent that's coming up and just the overall progression of the sport?
New talent's huge because we're finally seeing a full blending of styles of mixed martial artists instead of specialists in one particular martial art or two that are trying to combine them. We're finally seeing the full meal deal now. Um, there's also an overall acceptance to the sport that's a lot more wide reached now than before. Before it used to be a barbaric sport, right? Human cockfighting, I think, is what John McCain referred to it
Mm-hmm.
as. Now, I mean,
Yep.
it's effective and
Yep.
it's recognized as a sport instead of an actual fight. So uh, don't tell anybody. At the end of the day, it's still a fight. But people that approach it from a sports mindset tend to be in better physical condition. We're seeing healthier athletes, longer, safer careers. I think it's the progression speaks volumes as to to how much work has gone into furthering the sport for the betterment of the athletes.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten more competitive as well. And people are, I mean, all the athletes now just look like they're in incredible shape and, different than in the beginning when you got Tank Abbott out there, just tough guy, but not in the best shape. You don't see anybody like that today,
Few and
really.
far between now, and if they don't take it serious, they get passed up. There's a lot of people wanting to get in the UFC. So if you're in the UFC now, you're upper echelon, and you got to continue to perform, or they'll pass you by, and somebody will take your spot.
That's one of the things that Kevin's been so good about is just taking these fights on short notice and offering to fight anybody, but then when the call actually comes, it seems like he's taken the call.
Man, one of the coolest things that I saw was during the COVID era, 2020. He fought. He won 5 fights in 7 months, but we had 13 opponent changes on those 5 fights. And one of them, we were supposed to fight Trevin Giles, and Trevin fainted on the walkout, passed out on the walkout. So Dana came to tell us, and Kevin he said, call Ed Herman, because Ed Herman had a fight fall out the day before. And Kev said, call Ed Herman, and I'll fight him. And so Dana called him, and Ed said, I'm a weight class up. I'm 205 pounds, not 185. And I'm 5 shots of tequila deep right now. And Kev said, I'll take 5 shots of tequila too, and we'll go out there and we'll go make some money. And clearly they didn't let that happen. I think we got to fight the next week. But I thought that was cool that he was down to fight a guy one weight class up on 45 minutes notice with 5 tequila shots just to make the fight happen. And you got a window, you got a small window of time
Wow.
to get these fights out and stay busy. If you stay in fight shape, you don't got to get in fight shape, which means stay in fight shape and go get paid. I think the kids, I don't want to pitch numbers out, but he's done extremely well financially over these last 5 years. So I'm proud of him.
That's great. One of the coolest things about him that I saw was when he chased the person down that robbed the liquor store between the weigh-in and the fight. Like that was incredible. That's incredible.
It was so funny. We were standing outside trying to figure out where we were going to eat dinner, and this guy runs out the liquor store, and the liquor store owner ran, and he made 5 steps, and he stopped with his hands on his knees. And he said, that guy stole a bottle of booze. And so Kev turned and looked at his uncle, baby uncle Patrick, and he said, first one that gets him wins. And they took off. And we were all just kind of like, really? We're going to play Batman right now? And I have a video on my phone somewhere, but I found some random guy that they'd passed him while they were running. And I said, did two guys run past here? And he said, yeah. I said, which way did they go? He said, they're over there. They went, behind that alley. He said, I heard one of them tell the other one, if you stop running now, I won't beat your ass when I get to you. And I said, yeah, that's Kevin. And yeah, he stopped that shooting in Houston at the sushi restaurant. A guy came in, started shooting up the place, and Kev took him down, choked him out. He stopped. He saw a tractor trailer flipped
Wow, I
over
didn't
and
know
went and
that.
pulled the guy out of that. He's officially Deadpool because he's a superhero, but he's not trying to be, and he's gonna hurt some feelings along the way. But he does well. Good guy to have on your side.
That's yeah, and good guy to travel with too, because you're always going to have stories when you come back, I'm sure.
Oh, good grief. The China story in its own right. When we went out to Beijing, I had, I think, 10 days with him, and I was convinced we were never, I know we'll never get asked to go back to China, but we had a great time. We were all headed, it was me and Travis Luter and Paul Halmy headed to the Great Wall to go check that out. And I said, hey, Kev, do you want to go with us to the Great Wall? You're never going to see it again. And he said, that sounds like white people stuff. And I said, shut up, it's not. And he goes, look at what y'all are wearing. And sure enough, Travis, Paul, and I were all wearing red flannel shirts. And I said, okay, yeah, you're right. This is kind of a white guy activity. Fair enough, stay home. And it was great for us. We actually drank Chinese vodka on the Great Wall with a bunch of Russians. And that was such a cool conversation to have because Russians are different. And I don't know what those guys were doing over there, but whatever they told us they were doing, it wasn't right. They were lying to somebody.
What'd they tell you they were doing?
They said they were in gas and oil. And when I asked gas and oil questions, you would have thought that I asked them to translate some hieroglyphics. And so they did ask Travis. They said, because they were talking about Travis fighting, and he said, the one of them turned to him and said, you fight to death? And he said, no. And the guy goes, bah. So I'm like, what the hell do you guys do in Russia?
You're just a fake fighter.
Yeah. You don't fight to the death. Nothing. So it was interesting. I don't know what they were.
That's funny.
I have a picture of them somewhere. It's comical. We're in our red flannel shirts, and they're varying levels of Russian that are all standing around us. And we drank, like I said, Chinese vodka. It tasted like paint thinner. It was the worst stuff in the world. And then rode that alpine slide down the Great Wall. I'm surprised nobody got killed or arrested.
Man, you've been all over the world riding bulls and fighting and training. What an incredible life you've had. And you're only 42.
Still going, hopefully. I hope for a while longer.
So if you were to define the difference between a positive mindset and a negative mindset, how would you do it?
Reframing your internal dialogue. There's a lot of people that concentrate on I shouldn't do this or don't do that, and your mind can't tell the difference between do and don't. So if you say don't get in the clinch, you're going to clinch because all your mind's hearing is clinch. So we got to reframe it to where you say, I need to go here instead, and keep it positive instead of telling your body and your mind, no, you've got to reinforce yes and reinforce positive.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I like that. And then if you were to, like one of the things that's been brought up here, and one of the things that I have a theme in my life, and I won't explain it. I'm just going to tell you these two words. Weakness equals strength. What does that mean to you?
That means that when you have your flaws exposed, you know what to work on, in my mind. So you know where your weak spots are, either to protect or to improve. Is how I interpret that.
Nice.
Because if we don't know
Pretty
ourselves,
close.
it's hard to know.
That's pretty good.
Give me the breakdown.
Well, I mean, it is that exactly how you said it, but also when you have weaknesses and you're aware of them, you can work on them. And then if you can make a weakness your strength, imagine how much better that you are.
That's awesome. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. I mean, but it is that way, and it's that way in fishing and fighting and everything that requires a lot of different skill sets. If there is one skill set that you're very bad at and you identify that and then you make that weakness your strength, you're going to be exponentially better than you once were.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that your phone is getting close, and we're also getting close on time, but man, it's been really awesome to meet you and hear these stories and tap into your mindset a little bit. And I'd love to have you back someday. We actually lost him right at the very end, so that's why it kind of bobbled there at the end, but that is not the last time we'll hear from Justin. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did as well. And Justin, you're always invited back. You have an open invitation to come back and talk to us about mindset and positivity. I loved it. I hope that you have a positive mindset all week, and we'll see you here next week. See ya.